And just about 15 minutes before the hour on this Thursday, Bank of America CEO Ken Lewis under fire today on Capitol Hill for criticism that he knew Merrill Lynch was in trouble before the companies linked. In fact, he just finished up his testimony just a short while ago. The chairman of that committee is Eldophus, Democrat from the state of New York. He's with our own Peter Cook on Capitol Hill right now. Peter.
Carol, thanks very much. Joined here for our first on Bloomberg interview with the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Eldophus of New York. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for the time. Appreciate it.
Delighted to be here.
You had Mr. Lewis there on the hot seat, if you will, for several hours. What did you learn today from his testimony?
Well, I think he pointed out that our system is broken and that we need to do something about regulatory system, because if you have a situation where people do not know what's going on, then that is not working. So transparency is very, very important. And today, in terms of the testimony, that there was a whole lot of backroom dealing, and I think that we can no longer afford the luxury of that kind of operation. So our committee is now looking and to see what we might be able to do to fix it. Now, however, we understand that we have to talk to both sides and to everybody that's in a position to make a decision, and we plan to do that and to get to the bottom of this. We're not going to leave it. We're going to stay with it.
And you're going to pursue this further by inviting Fed Chairman Bernanke, the former Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson, to the committee for hearing. You don't have a date yet set.
No, we don't have a date, but we do plan to invite them, because if it's broken and we're trying to fix it, we need to talk to people we think has some information that will help us in the process, because we cannot continue to just go along like this. I mean, people need to know in terms of what's happening, in terms of the regulatory agents, what's happening in terms of their government.
Let me ask you about the circumstances surrounding Bank of America's purchase of Merrill Lynch and the circumstances back in December when they had second thoughts about it. Mr. Lewis said today that he felt pressured by government officials to complete the transaction, they said, for Bank of America's interest, also for the country's interest at that time. But he doesn't think they crossed the line. Do you have your own view on that? Do you think Fed Chairman Bernanke, Mr. Paulson, did anything inappropriate based on what you know from the emails that your committee has uncovered and from Mr. Lewis's testimony?
Well, from the emails that we covered, there was definitely a lot of things going on. I'm not prepared to say that at this point that something went wrong, but I know one thing, that there were a lot of backdoor dealings that really people need to have known about. And of course, it's hard to believe that a CEO at his level was not aware of some of the things that were going on in reference in terms of the Merrill Lynch, in terms of the amount of money that they were losing. So all of these things bother me, and it points out that the system needs to be reviewed, because if the CEO is investing that kind of money, a merger is coming about, but I think that it's obvious that there was a shotgun wedding. There's no question about it. I think the question that we have is who had the shotgun.
To some extent, it sounds like these government officials had the shotgun. They threatened to kick Mr. Lewis out of his job if he didn't proceed with that. Again, sir, was that appropriate for them to threaten him with his own job?
That's the reason why we want to talk to everybody. We want to talk to the other side to find out, because there's always two sides to every story, and we want to make certain that we hear the other side of the story as well before we draw our conclusions. But the committee is going to continue to look. We're not going to go away. Some of them indicated the fact that in their last election, they got 70% of the vote, 80% of the vote, and they will be back. So I think that within itself shows our dedication and commitment to this cause.
So what about those who would argue you have to take yourself back to December? We were in a crisis atmosphere, that for the committee to be looking back at this and second-guessing these decisions that the Fed chairman made, the Treasury Secretary made at that time, is inappropriate. If you were in their shoes, arguably, you would have pushed some of these same buttons.
No, the point of the matter is that even if it was a crisis, that we still have to have some rules, regulations, some guidelines, and have a regulatory agency that is in place is going to help us to make certain that we make the proper decision, because maybe this might happen again. Who knows? But the point is that if we do not have something in place that is going to prevent the bad decisions to be made, then we'll continue to do so. And our committee has the operation and responsibility to look at this and to we have jurisdiction and make a decision as to what should happen. And of course, that's what we're doing. And we hope to be able to come back with something that will prevent these kind of things from happening in the future.
Let me just ask you finally, do you expect to have to issue subpoenas to the Fed chairman and the former Treasury Secretary? You think they'll come voluntarily?
I hope they will come voluntarily. I hope so. But if not, then we have to do what we have to do. But it's our hope that we just can make the request. They will come in because we see ourselves as people who want to be helpful and hope they understand that we want to be helpful.
Mr. Chairman, we thank you very much for the time. It's been a busy day for you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us here on Bloomberg.
Thank you.
Chairman Eldophus Towns of New York, Chairman of the House Oversight Committee. Carol, we'll send it back to you in New York.
All right, Peter, thank you so much. That was a Bloomberg exclusive.